Good evening. We'd like to welcome everyone to today's Board of Directors agenda meeting for May 23rd, 2023. This is our opportunity to review the agenda for our formal board meeting that will be held on June 6, 2023. We'll work to move expeditiously at this meeting. I do want to share an update with members of the City Board that the Enhanced Renters' Rights Ordinance has been policy discussion has been deferred to June 13th, 2023. So we'll discuss that then. And we'll go right into the presentation from our airport executive director, the Bill and Hillary Clinton Airport, Brian Malinowski.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And city directors, Mr. City Manager, all of you, good to see you. Is that a little better? Okay, I'll do my best. I'm a little soft-spoken, but I mean well. Before I start the terminal redevelopment plan, just wanted to take a moment and thank the city for all their support. Last Saturday, we partnered with the city and were able to open a park on our western border for the East End community neighborhood, and it was a wonderful park. The city was kind enough to donate the sidewalks and all the work and effort that went in with that as well. And so on behalf of the airport and the residents and the Airport Commission, just want to thank you for your continued support and partnership with that. It was a very, very good event. Just want to take a few minutes. Almost 2 weeks ago, I made this presentation through a workshop with the Airport Commission at the airport following our commission meeting, and was asked to come down and make a presentation for your benefit as well. And so very informal. We would like to make sure that we have an opportunity to share with you just our plans for the next phases of our terminal redevelopment. I'm going to start real quick with just some of you may have seen this. This is our fly-through video. And let me see, see if we can get this to come up. Here it comes. This was a video that was put together several years ago to talk about the 3 phases of the terminal at the airport. And so it's just maybe a minute or two, so we're going to take you through this. Is there any sound? Okay, thank you. And what this is taking you through is what the terminal will look like when all 3 phases are done. Phase 1 has been complete. And you'll see how, as part of the next and upcoming phase that I'll talk about in just a moment, which is phase 2, we'll actually straighten out the road in front of the terminal. It'll build the terminal commons and demolish the existing bag claim and build a new one to the west. And so this video was put together by a company called Alliance, which is an airport architect. And believe it or not, this was put together about 10 or 11 years ago. And you can actually see how many similarities the actual video have to what you see there today. As many of you have traveled through our airport, you've seen those ticket counters and that lobby work with the inline baggage system that has been completed today. As you come up here, you'll actually see to the left there some of the old airport commissioners, Mr. Miller. We just zoomed right past
old commissioners.
Our young airport commissioners. And you may have seen, you may see Mr. Schick there and Mr. East. You'll even see my predecessor, Mr. Matthew, and Kay Kelly Arnold and a few of the others that they green screened and photoshopped right into the video. It's very nice. Ultimately, when we do phase 3 of the terminal, which will be a little bit further down the line, you'll end up with a new terminal concourse as well. And that's where you see the vaulted ceilings and a lot of natural light. In this video depiction. And then there's just a return coming back as you fly in, which you would expect to see as well. There's a nice shot here looking out the west side of the terminal to the downtown Little Rock skyline. It's very nice. And then this is coming into that terminal commons area and then down the escalators and over to the new baggage claim that'll be built here in phase 2. One of the other key important aspects of the terminal renovation in phase 2 is that checkpoint will move downstairs and will expand. And so this gives you the completion of what all 3 phases of the terminal redevelopment program will be like when they're completed. This is a very beautiful sky night shot of what it'll look like when it's done. Okay. To take you through just some of the what's next, what's right around the corner. Currently, the commission has authorized the design and development, and then we'll be shortly bidding that utility plant that you see to the far left-hand side. We have to move our utilities out of the way, out of the center part of the building, in order to allow the development of the terminal commons and the arrival hall. In addition to that, we have some utilities that are kind of end of life. The building was built in 1972, and believe it or not, we have some electrical boards and some other utilities that date that far back. And so that'll be the first thing that will happen. The utility plant will take about 2 to 2.5 years to build and get that out of the way. And prior to it being finished, we'll actually start on the terminal commons and the arrival halls area. And that'll take probably about a total of about 4 years. So overlapping wise, it's probably about 4.5, maybe 5 years worth of work. This takes you inside the terminal. The areas to the right are complete today, where you see the ticketing and we opened up the lobby. And this shows that you'll have 4 carousels to reclaim your luggage to the west. And again, that terminal's common area in the middle. This gives you another view of that terminal's common with all the natural light and the high elevations that you'll be able to see at the front door. And that's a shot from the outside. One of the things that we went through in our process was a big sense of place, so that people would know that they're arriving in both Little Rock and in Arkansas. The wave in the building actually represents some of the wave of the rice fields in the plains out to the east of Arkansas. A schematic drawing of the roadway system once we finish phase 2. You'll see that we get rid of that old S-serpentine that's there today. That's very hard to navigate through. And you'll basically have a straight road in front of the terminal, and it'll be essentially a horseshoe design as you're coming into the airport. Where the baggage claim is today will be demolished, and that's where you see the surface parking in the middle there. The existing garage stays in place, and then over time, we'll come back with one of our supplemental projects to do another garage in between the 2 buildings. Phase 3 of the concourse, and we're not doing that right now, we're gonna do phase 2. And when we finish phase 2, we're probably gonna rest for a little bit, maybe 7 or 8 years, and then we'll embark upon phase 3. Phase 3 is the final phase, and it will rebuild the entire concourse. And you can see it there to the west of the existing one. Another shot of the concourse, and very similar to what you saw in the video. And this is a shot of the concourse looking back down toward, looking to the south, looking toward the front of the terminal. Again, that's the overall finished product. That's the nighttime view. Little bit of a timeline. We are already in some of the design process. As we start looking at the existing facilities, and when we start to bring on that central utility plant through design and bid, and then we'll hopefully have that under construction here in '24. and you start seeing the different pieces as they come in. And then their overlap with both the utility plant and then phase two, the terminal. And let's see. Start bringing in some of the final pieces. And ultimately, as we get closer to the late 2029, 2030 timeframe, that's when we'll start to discuss phase three. Phase three would probably be, at this point, 2036, 2037, something like that. One of the questions that I want to bring up, and then I'll open up the floor to you, is cost. That central utility plant that I talked about is about $40 million, and so we will fund that internally. We were very successful in getting grants from the FAA for a significant amount of the terminal commons work and for a portion of the terminal phase two work as well. As you may know, the airport is presently debt-free, and that's a status that we enjoy with about 9 other airports in the nation. As we get into phase two, our preliminary numbers are looking at about $175 to $200 million, and we will have to take on some debt at that time for a portion of that. So
What was that number again, please?
about 175 to 200 million, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
So with that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions or.
Thank you so much, Brian. Do appreciate you and your entire team and all that you do with our airport, which is an economic engine. So we are very grateful to have a debt-free airport. We're grateful for all you contribute to the overall city and community, and want to make certain that we share our appreciation to you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Oh, Director Peck.
Thank you. Brian, I just wanted to thank you. You all probably know that both Director Wyrick and I are liaisons to the Airport Commission, and we saw most of this presentation, and I think it's been a little over 3 years since we last had a presentation, and there's just so many exciting things happening. We wanted Brian to come and share everything with you. We should be very proud of our airport. I am, and thanks to you and your team. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Director Peck and Director Wyrick, for this, and want to make certain there's any questions about it, that you had this opportunity. And long story short, as it relates to June the 11th, John, if you'll make the announcement.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, members of the board, the city has or plans to announce today that our cutoff date for property owners to get debris from the storm out to the road for collection is going to be June 11th. That's just a little shy of 3 weeks from now. We've seen a considerable reduction in the amount of debris that's out in the storm path. We've gone from anywhere from 15 to 20,000 cubic yards a day of collection by our contractor down to about maybe 5,000 on average cubic yards of collection a day. So we see that spike from the very beginning when there's lots and lots of stuff that was put out. And we've made a huge dent. Probably we're at about 360, 370,000 cubic yards of material that's been collected so far since April 20th. So we've made a gigantic reduction in the amount of material that's out. So we're going to set this cutoff date for property owners to get their material out to the roadside for our contractor to be able to collect it. So on June 11th, which is a Sunday, the day following that, on that Monday the 12th, our contractor will begin making their final sweep across the city through the storm track to do collection of all that material that's been put out. And as they go through the city, they'll systematically identify where they've been, what they've collected to show us that they've been to those locations and picked up what's out. And once they've made that final pass, that's the last pass that they'll make across the city to those locations.
Director Campiris.
John, take us through the process. You pick up trees and then you grind them.
Yes, sir.
Where does the material go?
Sure. So our contractor's been picking up both vegetative debris, trees, and other biodegradable material. They're taking that to an area at the city's landfill where we've provided them a location to stockpile all of that material. It's been about, I think it's 250,000 cubic yards, roughly. That may not be the most back into our composting and mulching facility that the city has, that we do with the vegetative debris that we collect weekly at everybody's homes. So our contractor will eventually deposit all of that material back onto our mulching site within the landfill itself.
So my end question is, does that increase the necessity or the time of building new cells because of the amount of material we have? Should we start looking to budget that?
The vegetative debris does not impact the cell because that does not go into the landfill itself. The construction debris that we've collected, yes, that has impacted our cell, what we anticipated the life of the current cell we're working on. And we have already started looking at how that's going to accelerate any need to do the next cell in our plan for the landfill. So we are already looking at that.
So we will have to accelerate that, most likely.
Yes, sir. Not only based on this, there's some other factors that have occurred over the last several years, but yes, that is going to have an impact on the lifespan of the current cell we're in.
And then the compost site, what happens to that?
We're actually going to expand the area at the site based on the volume of the material that we're going to be getting from the storm. So that's going to be increased in size, at least the impervious area that we're able to stockpile that. So we're working on that right now to get that in place so the contractor has a place to continue to bring that. So there'll be an impact to the landfill across the board from this entire storm event.
Do we use the compost?
Well, yes, we use the mulch is the main product that we're going to have. That can be converted into compost at our facility. So that is going to be one use of the debris. Another use of the debris will be as daily cover on the landfill cells itself. We have to put cover on top of the garbage that we put into the cell every day, and that mulch material is an acceptable use for cover. So we'll use it for some of that. We'll make it available to the public as another use, and there's other end products for that mulch and vegetative material. So there's multiple ways that it can be used.
And have you worked with the Sustainability Committee or Commission to try to figure out more uses for it or how the public can get hold of it?
We haven't gone to them yet. We've still been, more trying to get it all collected and processed at this point. We haven't really started going out what we're going to do with it once we actually get it all at this point. But that's something we'll definitely do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Mayor Webb, then Director Wyrick.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Director Honeywell first. I wanted to thank you again for coming to Kingwood last week. You answered a whole lot of questions from the residents about the debris. And to follow up on something Director Campuris was talking about, you showed us some pictures of the mulching or of the amount of debris that had been mulched, and next to it, some of the big giant trucks that have picked it up, but they look like little ants compared to the amount of debris. So when you're talking about 250,000 cubic yards, you can hear that number, but then to see that volume compared to the little that made the truck look like a toy truck was really kind of a sobering experience. And would you mind sending us one of the pictures? Now that we're moving it out, it might not look the same, but I think it will give the board a context of how much there is.
Certainly, we'll do that. I'll get those to everybody to distribute out to the board, and then we'll try to get those where they can put it out where the public can have a better idea of exactly what we've got going as well.
Director Wyrick, and then Director Adcock.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Honeywell, I don't know if you said, if you did, I missed it. Why are we cutting the date off for 6/11/23?
Well, it gives a minimum of 2-week notice that we wanted to provide property owners, but we're also seeing that huge decline in the amount of material that's actually out. And at some point, we need to set a date for our contractors so they can plan accordingly with their subcontractors and everybody else to be able to work through their equipment, employees, and other subcontractors to have a plan for where they're going to go next.
So it really is just to encourage the residents to
Yes.
finish doing what they're going to be doing. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think the impact's going to be to the community after the 6/11? Do you think there's still going to be lots of debris that needs to be taken out? I don't drive through there unless I have a reason, and I haven't been through there in 2 or 3 weeks, but there was a lot of, look like work still needed to be done when I was through there 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's potentially going to be debris that's going to be extremely difficult, either just because of the terrain that it's located on, and by debris, I mean trees that have been knocked over. But that's something that the city can't necessarily accommodate that removal because of where it's located on private property.
Private property.
So, over time, if there's efforts made to remove that, I think we can try to address that at a case-by-case basis. But for the purpose of this contract and for wrapping up with the FEMA process, I think we need to set this date so we can finalize this contract with our removal company.
I don't have a feel for what kind of hardship that might be for the residents, is the reason why I was asking that. I understand we want to try to encourage them to do their work, but if they're waiting on insurance or, whatever their issue is, then I'm just wondering if that's going to be a good date and what the ramifications would be after that. So I understand what you're trying to do, but I do worry about what might be left. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Adcock, and then we'll transition to the next report.
Mr. Honeywell,
Yes, ma'am.
the
I'll get to
people
you.
who houses are still standing, but they're going to have to tear out walls and flooring and everything else. After 6/11, what are they going to do with those things?
That will have to be incorporated into the contract that they have for remodeling their home. It won't be something that they can put out on the street. It'll be picked up as part of the FEMA process.
So how long will they have to take out the things inside the house that you'll still pick it up at no extra charge?
Do you mean,
Say if my house is still standing and I've got to tear out the walls and everything because the inside was destroyed. So I've not done anything yet, but I've got to take walls out, flooring out, and other things as I start building back new?
that needs to be out by the 11th of June for it to be included in this FEMA disaster response?
If it's not, then they are responsible for getting rid of it?
Yes, ma'am. That needs to be incorporated into their contract with their contractor that's doing the work in their home.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Director Hines?
So, John, the big question I got that Director Campiris brought up are because the useful life of our cells, and maybe this is a question for Bruce and the mayor too, is any of that cost reimbursable to the city as a, you know, since it's gonna move up our unplanned event, can we get reimbursement for some of that capacity?
And I can try to answer that. So regarding the volume in the Class 1, the regular garbage landfill cell, we are able to charge our tipping fees, our normal costs for anyone to dump into our landfill. We get reimbursed that through the FEMA process. So we are actually getting revenue from taking up that space. We're not giving that away for free.
Okay.
And then in regards to the composting mulching site expansion of that, that's actually something that we can get some reimbursement from FEMA to help cover those costs as well. So that's all already been put into the program with FEMA, working on reimbursement for that.
Super. The next question is an area that right now has not been touched at all, and that's on Chenal Parkway, the Rock Creek Trail. We've got a lot of right-of-way with a lot of trees still down in it, a lot of storm debris. Do we know when, and I've heard that they've been working a lot down around Murray Park because we had quite a few trees. Do we have an ETA? Because I'm starting to get questions because the trail's not accessible. And I'd like to be able to tell folks what an ETA for those contractors to get into those areas are.
I can't give you an ETA on that because we're actually, just yesterday, we've been working with a different agency, Natural Resource Conservation Service, which is another federal agency. Because of that, the watershed nature of the Rock Creek area, we're looking at doing a program with them for that removal of the trees and the restoration of that entire area. And we've been working with them has taken longer as far as getting approvals and exactly what we're going to do there. So I should be able to get you a date of exactly what's going to happen, hopefully here in the next week or so.
Okay, well, and I guess the question is, there's some areas where we just got trees down across the trail that we can go in, at least cut the trees back, the trail will be accessible. I get that, we don't want to start disturbing the creek banks and that kind of stuff, but we've got, folks want to use that resource, and we've put a great effort into Murray Park and being able to reuse that resource. So I'd just like to make sure, since it's the only park facility I've got in West Little Rock in Ward 5, that it's usable by our residents.
Yes, sir. And that came down to not trying to have work done in the same area under two separate federal reimbursements. That's why we were going to do that under the FEMA, but then it started getting a little muddled as far as the different agencies and where they overlap each other. So that's the reason it hasn't been done along the trail right now.
Okay.
But I'll get you more detail on that as soon as I can.
All right, and I've got an area that is right in front of, it used to be called Jenny's Vineyard. I looked on the maps, it's our right of way. It's right there on the north side, westbound, just past where, I don't even know what the name of those apartments are, but the Energy came in and basically cut all of those trees off at about 10 feet tall. And it's not anything that's in the creek bed, but it needs to be remediated. I just don't want to make sure it doesn't get overlooked because it's pretty unsightly right now.
And that's Chenal as well.
That's on Chenal. Yeah, it's just west of the Five Guys Burgers. You'll see it. You can't miss it. There's a power right of way there, but all of that right of way is ours. It's part of the Rock Creek Trail, I think. It's all one parcel, but I just want to make sure because it's not down in the creek beds that gets addressed.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Honeywell.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Members of the board, we're going to move up the Little Rock Police Department reorganization. As you know, Chief Helton came before the city board to present the findings alongside the command staff of our staff study, made the commitment that we would work towards getting to as much of the recommendations as possible to get to that nature. So to Director Miller, I also want to share that after this study, we'll schedule we'll give you an update on where we are on some of the other recommendations of the CNA. Some of those have already been implemented, as you're aware. There's still some outstanding ones. We'll get that update to you, but we did make the commitment to you and the board that we will get this staffing study done as quickly as possible. This will be implemented, I believe, June 6th or 3rd, June 3rd. And so Chief Helton, just want to commend you and your assistant chiefs and all the command staff for the work that you all have done to get us to this point. Very grateful. And if you'll just quickly go through everyone should have this, quickly go through this, and then we'll know there'll be some questions.
Yeah, not a problem. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Mr. Moore, members of the board, I appreciate the opportunity to come before you this evening and talk a little bit about the reorganization and where we're headed as a police department. As you know, back in October of last year, Mr. Craig Juniger with CPSM came, presented to the board the findings and kind of the recommendations. If you recall, there were 127 recommendations that were made. Obviously, not all those recommendations are going to be before us tonight. We've taken some of the things, and I'll do a sheet and get it out to you all on all the things that we've done so far within the department. Some of those are not achievable at this time. Some are ongoing. Some we've had completed. But what we've really looked at is the reorganization of the department, trying to encompass some of the recommendations now. We feel the time is good for us to go ahead and move forward, reorgan. So a lot of these conversations with the reorganization happened after October of last year when then Interim Chief Bewley was here. We started discussions, myself, Assistant Chief Miller, Chief Bewley. Obviously, Chief Bewley retired. So myself and Chief Miller continued those conversations, but knowing that we had some assistant chiefs that were going to be made soon, we kind of held off on some of those. And then once Assistant Chief Ellison and Assistant Chief Dyer were promoted, we sat down collectively as a group, had some conversations, decided what would what we felt was best for the organizations. And prior to that, we had met with the command staff, kind of listened to their ideas after they had a chance to review the recommendations, and to really give us a footprint on what the department will look like going forward into the future. So, because I kind of remind everybody that, you know, we have to continue to evolve as a department, look at best practices, look at what's going to be fitting for us, and then look at how we've been doing business in the past. And we all know that the world we live in now is a lot different than what we knew 5, 10, 15 years ago. It's just a different world. And our department has evolved. Some of our challenges are a lot different now than what they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. So we got to continue to figure out what we can do to become more efficient, more effective in serving our community. So what I'm going to do now is kind of go over where we were at as opposed prior to this past Saturday. And reason last Saturday, because we had some promotions that were made Friday that went into effect Saturday. So kind of give you an idea how the chief's office is set up as of last Saturday. You had myself as the chief, and then my 3 assistant chiefs. Chief Ellison is over our executive bureau, Chief Dyer is over our field services, which is patrol, and then Chief Miller is currently over investigative. Once I get to the reorg part that will take effect on June 3rd, I will have each one of these bureau chiefs come up and talk about what their bureau will be doing. And then once we get to the end of that, be happy to answer any questions. So part of the chief's office, I had Miss Martin, who is our community relations manager that reports directly to me, as well as Mr. Brooks, and then Miss Sanders, who our administrative services manager, is not on there, but those are the 3 as of this past Saturday, and will continue, and then where we will go here in a couple weeks. So as part of the executive bureau, as of past Saturday, like I said, you had Chief Ellison, you had Major Tyrell, who was over our headquarters division, Major Miller, who was over our training division, and then Major Davis, Cassandra Davis, was over our professional standards, which some of you might know it as internal affairs division, which also encompasses our accreditation unit and our FOIA unit. So the headquarters division, looking at each one of these separately, you have Major Tyrell as division commander. Currently, as of right now, Lieutenant Prater is the only lieutenant in the division, and he kind of runs our property room, warrants, the desk. He also has the responsibility of manning our real-time crime center, our cadets, our records department, and as far as our vehicles and body-worn cameras. So one lieutenant there is really manning a lot of the behind-the-scenes thing that sometimes gets forgotten about, but is probably some of the more integral components of the department that really keeps us going, day-to-day operation. Our training division, you have Major Miller, Lieutenant Miles, who's a lieutenant, and then that is broken down into 3 sections. You have a recruit and background unit, you have our in-service unit as well, so you've got 3 components in there. Our investigative bureau, obviously Chief Miller, you have Major King as the SID, which are our special investigations division commander. Major Lott was over major crimes, and then Major Allen is our 21st century. Major Allen will be retiring at the end of next month. So that's why we've recently promoted in that position, made the request because he is currently out and on a medical deal, but he plans to retire at the end of next month. Our 21st Century Policing Division, it currently has no major, as of last Saturday, had no major. So Lieutenant Trent, it was being operated by a lieutenant, and it only really had 2 units in there with our public information office, and then you had Officer Brandon and Officer Tolentino, kind of our community resource unit, community relations unit. You had, in our special investigation, you have basically 2 units within it, an intel unit and our narcotics unit. And then field services, obviously you have the 3 patrol divisions, 12th Street, Southwest, Northwest, as well as our special operations division. So what we try to do as we move forward in the reorg is figure out how we spread our workload out and utilize our personnel better. And then here, major crimes, you've got homicide, violent crimes, our 3 to 11 shift commander, and then our vacant juvenile robbery position. Like I said, keep in mind, this is as of last Saturday. So going forward, effective on June the 3rd, our reorg will kick in. So the chief's office will still consist of all of us, but as of that Saturday on the 3rd, Mark Edwards, who's our public information officer, will report directly to the chief's office now, along with Ms. Mullins, Ms. Sanders, and then Mr. Brooks. So they will all be part of the chief's office in line with us. So I think it's important that the public information office has a direct line to the chief, and that message solely comes out from us in the chief's office. So we'll hopefully streamline that process better, and we'll make sure we're working very closely with him and working with the mayor's public information office as well to make sure we're really getting the appropriate message out. And And then I'll have Chief Ellison come up and talk about the Executive Bureau.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Chief Ellison of the Executive Bureau. There wasn't many changes made to this bureau, but there were some that we're in the process of transitioning officers to civilian employees. As you can see here, the only real change is we have Major Newfer move over to our professional standards, which was once held by Major Cassandra Davis. Cody Miller is still over training, and Major Tyrell is still over our headquarters division. And here with Major Tyrell of our headquarters division, it'll be separated into 2 lieutenants under him, Jonathan Prater, and also it should be Michael Terry, Lieutenant Mike Terry. And he's going to be over our records and support and technology, which include our vehicles, our fleet, cadets, the real-time crime center, also our records and also our budget as well, while Prater will assume roles under with the property room and also warrants in the front desk. Also with Cody Miller, will be still over our training division, and change is we're going to move our extended leave unit over to training. A lot of their extended leave personnel are mainly officers and supervisors on military leave, under administrative leave, or extended health reasons under our sick leave. But everything else will pretty much stay the same in that division. Also, just an added to the background in the recruiting unit, we're in the process of including 2 civilian positions there to take the place of officer vacancies there. We're in the process of trying to hire 2 civilians there who will be investigators themselves. We're looking at targeting possibly police officers who have retired from our department with their experience and in those fields that should be viable candidates that we're looking for, but also we're still keeping those positions available for people to apply. If there's any questions of me, I'm gonna turn it over to Assistant Chief Miller.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Michael Miller, Assistant Chief over Investigative Bureau. As you see on the slide there, Major Cassandra Davis is going to come over to the 21st Century Division. Major King and I have Major King over SID, and then Major Clark will come over to the Major Crimes Division. For 21st Century, if you'll notice from the previous slides on this, we've added the SRO, which is our school resource officers, the community resource unit, our youth programs, and our wellness unit, all to 21st Century. We felt like those were a better fit, better utilization of our supervisors and our personnel to make them more effective. Those units will work well together, and we felt like this was the best way to make sure that the work product that you're receiving is the best that it can be. Moving on to major crimes, one of the parts that we've done here is our property crimes units that were in the divisions. They are still staying in each division. However, their supervision will now fall under the Major Crimes Division. They will report to one singular lieutenant, whereas before we had 3 lieutenants, one for each of the patrol divisions that handled property crimes. Now they'll have 1 lieutenant. The reason for this is part of the recommendations was we needed more supervision on the streets for the patrol officers, which we needed more lieutenants. And in order to free up those lieutenants, we had to move them from property crimes over to the patrol side of the house. And so in order to accomplish that and keep the supervision and chain of command, we put the property crimes under major crimes. So the detectives are still there, the sergeants are still there. It's just the lieutenant now is one singular lieutenant working out of the major crimes, which is at 12th Street. We've also, another recommendation was to civilianize positions, which everyone has talked about. And we have decided that our NIBINS machine, which is our gun casing, gun tracing machine, which is currently operating out of SID, and it has 3 detectives and a sergeant. We are going to civilianize that unit. And we've already gotten approval from the mayor. We've already advertised the positions, and we're working on interviews now. We're going to move that machine to our crime scene unit, and we're going to have civilians do that job, and that frees up 3 detectives and a sergeant for some of these vacancies that we have in the division. I'll give it over to Assistant Chief Dyer.
Thank you, Chief Miller.
Good afternoon. I know Chief Miller sounded all excited. Trust me, he is giddy on the inside, more so than on the outside. So, my name is Andre Dyer. I'm the Field Services Bureau Chief. Some of the changes that we decided to make as a group was taking the newer promoted major. She is now, which is Major Christina Plummer. She is now of the Southwest Division. We did have to rearrange some things to make it workable. We did collect Major John Lott from Major Crimes. I think he was kind of worn out with doing some of the things that he had to do as often as he had to do them. So we put him over the Special Operations Division because he's well versed in that area. Major Eric Hinsley over the 12th Street Division, which is doing very well there. And Major Zach Farley is our Northwest Division Commander. As you can see, the new patrol division makeup is division commander, relief lieutenant, and the shift commanders will stay the same. That relief, if anyone is wondering what that is is someone who will be there to where we never not have a lieutenant on the grounds. One of the things that the staffing study advises that we need to always have a lieutenant on the ground, and we had to make those movements or those moves to make sure that happens. So once we allowed property crimes to go back up into major crimes, since they are part of the detective division, one of the things we looked at is creating slots for the relief lieutenant. Those relief lieutenants will work 10-hour shifts instead of 8, to where there's an overlap at the end of one shift and an overlap at the beginning of the final shift. So there is always a lieutenant on the ground, which is most important. New patrol makeups, it's about the same. You're going to have the shift commanders, which are lieutenants, patrol sergeants, patrol officers, and that one CRO. And make sure we don't get community resource unit confused with community resource officers, okay? I know that the community resource unit falls under the investigative bureau. We still have our community resource officer at each division. Also, it needs to be noted that we're still going to have property crime detectives working out of each division. They're just going to be assigned to major crime. The biggest change is going to be the mobile unit that you see to your right. The mobile units are going to be created to where we're splitting up the street crimes unit. They'll have some of the same functions, but there'll be more towards the community involvement on top of then the go-getters, the heavy hitters when we need something done. It's also a very valuable resource when we have any specialized details that come up. One of the things that we run into that we have the most issues with is pulling patrol officers to deal with some of the issues that we may be having in each division. So instead of having those extra bodies come out of one division to where they're deploying from one spot, each division will have their own set of officers to deal with any issues that may come up, and we believe that it gives them more of an investment piece in those areas. So this was something that we did several years ago. It was very effective, but because of staffing issues, we would disband, and we decided that this needed to come back to give us more coverage dealing with some of the issues that we're having right now. The Special Operations Division is going to be ran by Major John Lott, as I discussed before. It houses several different units: Special Response Unit, the SWAT Unit, Airport Unit, our Traffic Services Unit, and we're also moving the Emergency Management piece over to Special Operations. The Traffic Services Unit, as you see, is comprised of Motors Unit, Hit and Run, Special Events, and our K-9 Unit.
Thank you so much. Before we go to questions, I have up first Director Richardson and then Director Campuris. But Chief Hilton, any final comments before we go to questions?
Yes, sir. As you can see, we've done a lot of movement here. A lot of this was very much thought out. We've had a lot of disagreements, a lot of frank discussion between the four of us. But at the end of the day, we felt like this was going to be a good fit for us. We tried to think about how do we become better? How do we better serve our community? And each one of those things really came to the forefront on what we need to do. So I think this is going to be a good platform for us to move forward. Obviously, once we figure out getting more people in the door would allow us to do some more things, but I'm very excited about the direction we're moving. Obviously, our numbers right now, if y'all haven't had a chance to see our numbers on the city's website today, we're down in all categories of crime. It's the first time we've been that way in a long time. Violent crime down 6%, property crimes are down 6%, and then overall we're down 6%. So I do realize we're moving into our busy time of the year, but we've got some momentum. I think we have a lot of opportunity to really do some good things, and I appreciate the guys behind me for their input, their work, and a lot of discussion that we had to really come up with this platform. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
And Chief Hilton, I again want to and thank you for sharing with the board and as we share with the community. It's a team effort, and to even get to this point in regards to the staffing study that we commissioned a year and a half, 2 years ago, to now go towards implementation. It's been a journey, as you shared, a lot of frank discussions to get here, but it also demonstrates the ability to really morph into a 21st century policing, community policing entity, now having transitioned to the positions that needed to be civilianized, to having social workers and mental health workers now in the Little Rock Police Department, a real-time crime center. We truly are embodying a great 2023 police department from a 21st century perspective. So I say thank you for the entire leadership team, you and the leadership team there. And then secondly, we are grateful that we are down. Violent crime is -6%, and overall crime is -6% as compared to this time last year. Clearly, things tend to heat up in the summer, so we want to keep our powder dry as we kind of move towards that. But just big ups to the entire team as we continue to see these positive changes. That being said, Director Richardson, then Director Campuris, then Director Phillips.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and Chief Hilton, thank you. And I want to use your team comment as a segue to more of a couple of observations rather than questions, and that'll be brief. I don't know who else. I know we have our translators in the back of us, and I don't know who else has our comments transcribed on your iPad, so I'll need to make sure I enunciate really, really well. So instead of saying ax, I'm gonna say ask. Mayor, I think that these gentlemen, I've known 3 of them for at least 30 years when I was doing direct service gang intervention prevention programming in the community. I've known them, I've watched them grow up through the ranks of the police department. I think we have the right command staff. I think we have the right patrol. I think we have the right people as part of our police department. I think we're really, they're a beacon of light for our community, and I think we have the right people in the right places. And I want to commend all of them for their work and their growth through the department and getting to the points that they are right now. To that point, I want to say that, Mayor, 12th Street was mentioned a couple of times. I know we had a soft opening with the Southern Bancorp a little while ago. We had a soft opening with UAMS 12th Street Community Cafe, and that area is no longer Ward 2. It's part of Ward 1 now, and Director Miller and I have talked about this, but it's part of that 12th Street revitalization project that the city has invested so much in, and I want to make sure that people know that we've had a couple of soft openings. Mr. Moore is working with I think the Chancellor of UAMS and the CEO of Southern Bancorp to make sure we have some real hard openings so that people know. We have a community cafe there. They serve breakfast from 7 to 11, lunch from 10:30 to 2 o'clock. It's right there in the community, right in the heart of a food desert. And it was part of a building that a lot of us Mr. Moore and I faced questions about when we talked about making the building that big and having 8,000 square feet committed to retail space, and we have the right partners, the right people in place in those positions so that this 12th Street station doesn't look like an island in the community and helps improve community relationships. So I just want to commend you guys. Thank you guys. Thank our other men and women in blue for the work that you do for us every day. That a lot of times you guys don't get acknowledged for, you don't get the recognition for, but I think right now our command staff, Mayor, is the best we could possibly have. I know all of these guys personally and work with them personally and watch them see the need to recognize some of those changes and take us through the maturation of making those changes that they inherited, those issues that they inherited, and making the changes to address them appropriately. So that was just my quick, I know I said quick, but that's an oxymoron whenever I talk and say quick. That's just my quick point on what we have in place, and thank you guys again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Director Campiris?
Well, thank you all for the presentation. Let me just ask one, and I can't remember the gentleman's name that gave us the 165 or 2 million recommendations, but when he talked to us, he talked about that we were going to have 10 or 12-hour shifts. And looking at this, it looks like we're back to 8-hour shifts.
We are still on 8-hour shifts. We feel like we've got a pretty good grasp on what we're doing right now, our dosing, things that we're doing from a standpoint to address crime, how we're patrolling, how we're utilizing the data to push us where we're doing. We feel like we're being very effective with that. That has kind of kept us from needing to go to 12-hour shifts. So I think we're good where we're at right now. Obviously, we've talked to, command that if things get bad, then we honestly, the chief holds the right to pull the trigger to go to 12-hour shifts if necessary. But I think where we're at, I think we're doing some good work. So, and I don't really want to pull that trigger just yet.
And I think for the morale, 12 hours, I've worked 12-hour shifts, and it's no fun to do that long term. So I just wanted to, I remembered that from the other report talking about it. So this is what we're going to do first, and if it doesn't work, we'll do something else. Is that right?
Just like anything else, I think the four of us can agree that when we sat down and had our discussion, we're going to try what we need to try, and if it don't work, we're going to go back to the drawing board and draw up again. But
Okay.
I feel like we got some good foundation in what we're trying to do, and I feel very confident where we're moving.
Secondly, there was a group of texts between you and the mayor and Bruce and all of us about, and I want to make 2 points. One is that I think y'all have done a hell of a great job. I mean, John Honeywell has done a great job picking up material, but we've hired a group to come in and do it. So we're not using just city employees to pick up that mountain of material that Kathy was talking about. Y'all haven't had that benefit. One of the things we brought up was, at least in some of the hardest hit areas, temporarily putting in private groups to help. Could you comment on that?
There was some discussion about maybe getting some outside security folks to come in and help some of the harder hit areas. I think we're doing a good job addressing some of those issues. We know when we have these type of incidents that occur, that you're going to see incidents of theft that will happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We saw the same thing in 97, and we saw it in 99 when the tornadoes hit Little Rock. You're going to have those incidents. It's very difficult for us to stop everybody in the neighborhood. One, legally, we have to have legal cause to be able to stop everybody. I mean, especially you take during the day, we don't know who's an insurance adjuster, a volunteer, contractors, you name it, there's subs that come through. It's nothing new that when you have a lot of renovations done on homes, that oftentimes some of these subcontractors that go in and do it, see what's put in, they come back at night to visit, to take things. So you're going to see those things that happen. I think our biggest message is when the community sees something suspicious, they need to let us know. A lot of times we don't find out till the next day. that things do happen. They saw something, but they didn't notify us about it. We've got things implemented in those neighborhoods. We have patrols going on. Obviously, we're going to put more resources in here in the next week or so when some other units become available from their current job assignments that they'll be freed up. For example, our SROs, high schools will be graduating next week. They'll be out. So we'll have our SROs available to us. There's 23 of them. That's 23 bodies I can utilize to elsewhere within the organization. So we will funnel them, some of them to the work, the tornado relief area and things of that nature. So I feel very confident in doing that and the way we've got it. The problem when you hire private securities, they're very limited on what they can do. Sometimes they're not really respected. And obviously, when you get to the latter part of nights, are they really doing what you want them to do? So, and we can't babysit them at night, so to speak. We've got to continue to do our part. So, we're addressing every issue that comes up. I can tell you right now, we are stretched very thin, trying to address all the complex challenges and issues that face us. But at the end of the day, the numbers I talked to you about just a while ago, we're doing a good job. And our folks we're riding them hard, but they have responded well, and we're going to continue to do that and reassure our folks. I understand those that have experienced some thefts. Very frustrating, very, very frustrating. And we're going to continue to step our patrols. A lot of times I think people want us, they say they don't see us. Well, we're out there. I can promise you, we're out there.
And I appreciate what you're doing. And I think that one of the things we talk about is that what is happening in these neighborhoods is just pure theft. It's not looting, it's just stealing.
Yeah, it's just stealing.
And it doesn't have any thing to say about race, age, anything else. It's just people who are taking advantage of people who are in hard straits. So I want to make sure that we understand that this is not directed to any one group of people. It's just people who are taking advantage of other people.
No difference than the people that go down to our parks sometimes and get their vehicles broken into, people to get taken
I agree with
advantage
you
of.
completely. So I appreciate that. The last thing you mentioned, that gearing up to summer, and I'm not asking you to tell me what the plan is because people then would know how to get around the plan, but what are we going to do about the caravanning and things like that? Because I've already had 2 or 3 people downtown talking about the same car going around the same building all night long.
We've got a very comprehensive plan in place. Chief Dyer has organized that plan. We are working very closely with our partners at Arkansas State Police, with the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office. We ran an operation last weekend where several, agencies came together, 3 agencies came together and really put some enforcement out there. You're going to continue to see that occur. And I think the high visibility will help detour some of that. Again, we encourage our community. When you see folks gathering up, you say, let us know. If you see it, let us know, because all too often, nobody ever calls us. And then,
That's not true of Kathy Webb and myself.
yeah, well, no. But there's often times that people will call and complain. I don't hear about it till the next morning, and I'm like, why didn't we get notified last night? Because I think Chief Dyer can tell you, when I get notified, he's usually the first person I'm calling right after I hang up the phone and say, hey, here's the deal. And he's like, I'm on it. And I guarantee if he says he's on it, he's on it.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate all you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you.
But understand that anything we've said on the other night was nothing more than just saying, everybody else gets all the help they need, and we need to give you the help you tell us you need. So just tell us when you need something, okay?
Yes, sir.
Director Phillips.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank the chiefs and assistant chiefs for the presentation. One question, then a comment. I want to make sure I heard Chief Dyer correctly about the community the community policing. Are we still having those on each individual shift? I saw the chart where it mentioned 1, but I want to make sure that it's clear on how this affects our ability to continue with community policing.
So we will have 1 community resource officer assigned to each patrol division, and then you'll have your mobile squads that will also function as community. They'll address the issues. Let me start with this. So how that came about, we met with we did a new CompStat format for the department, and our first CompStat, after we went through it, one of the questions I asked each of the patrol commanders is, what do you need from us? And Same answer across the board from all three patrol commanders. I need bodies. I need help. You know, we need bodies. So as we were working to finalize our reorg, it became very apparent. Obviously, I've got 23 recruits in our current recruit academy, but thinking, where can I get some relief? I've downsized where I can downsize, and we're still recruiting heavily, but it takes a while to get them through the door. So when we looked at what Street Crimes is doing, which they've done a phenomenal job, they've done a lot of work, but I think it's time to evolve that to where I can give each individual patrol division a group of individuals, a group of officers, and a supervisor to go address issues within that community. And it could be a variety of issues. And when they're not dealing with those issues, they're actually out there working on the community, trying to identify those issues, the drug houses, the issues that we see out there that may be code enforcement related or public works related, that we can send that message 311 to say, hey, there's issues here, working very closely with neighborhood and housing. So there's more things we can do from a community standpoint. And then in September, which that wasn't included on the slides, and this is kind of where Chief Dyer kind of addressed it. So we have our, excuse me, our community resource officers, then I'll have my community relations unit that's part of our 21st Century Division. So I've got 2 officers in there, but I'm also gonna, come September, I'm gonna create our behavioral response teams. And what that's gonna do is I'm gonna take some officers out of patrol that are our CIT officers, our crisis intervention trained officers. And we roughly got about 43% of the department that's trained CIT, which is far above anybody else in the state. So I'm gonna take some of those off and I'm gonna pair them with our social workers, and they're gonna be the ones that respond to these incidents where we get calls where somebody's in a mental health crisis, dealing with our unsheltered population. When we get those calls, they go out, work with our unsheltered individuals, trying to get them the resources, trying to get them hooked up with whatever agency or whatever partners we have in the community to try to help solve some of those issues. So that will be our footprint with community-oriented policing. And for me, it's not just about one officer. Theoretically, what I push is the entire police department should be community-oriented policing. And that's what we're working toward, and that's the vision.
Okay, I appreciate that clarity. I knew that that's still at the forefront of our department, and I just wanted to make sure it was clear to my colleagues and more important to our residents that this reorg is not affecting that in any detrimental way. And then next, I'll kind of comment to Director Campiers' remarks. I agree, you know, we got to do what we need to do to protect our residents out in those parts of town, but I can imagine somebody's watching this and they live in a part of town where there's gunshots or homicides, and they may ask, why not private security on 12th Street or on Asher? So I think we got to keep that in mind when we're having these type of conversations. And I just want to address that to the public and to the police department. I do echo Director Campiers' sentiment. If you need things from us as the policymakers for the city, please let us know so we can support you as you need to be supported.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Director Richardson, I think that's the last board member. Let's any more, and then we'll go to the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to piggyback Director Phillips' comments to you, Dean. I know a couple of weeks ago I talked about caravanning, and I said it was particularly real heavy in certain parts of the city, and you say, well, no, it's across the whole city. And I agree with you on that, but I would challenge you to find, anyone in this room to find more tire skid marks on any other street than you will find on Asher. Even though crime and canvassing is all over the city, it seems to be concentrated in certain parts of our community. And we need to recognize that and hold a mirror up, because we're not gonna be able to police our way out of it. I think sometimes we expect far too much from them. You can't police your way out of some of the social ills that young people are growing up with and facing with and utilizing as ways to define themselves or their normal transition to adulthood. So I think a lot of things that could help them really are things we can do from a policy standpoint beyond just adding more police officers on the streets and in the community. We can't police our way out of food deserts. We can't police our way out of self-hatred. We can't police our way out of disproportionate number of liquor stores or convenience stores that sell alcohol in certain parts of our community, which just happens to be coincidentally the places where we have the highest crime rates. And we're not negating or saying we don't need to look at the entire city, but I think, Dean, as a doctor, if I came to see you and I had a scratch on my elbow and a gunshot wound in my knee, I think you would pay more attention to the knee than the elbow. Not that you like my knee more than the elbow. That's the part of my body that needs the most help and the most assistance. So I think we need to look at our city the same way. There are certain parts of our community that unfortunately disproportionately suffer from some of these social ills that we're talking about, and we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can address those and still pay attention to the rest of the city. So I don't think that it's fair for us to expect them to police our way out of some of these public safety issues that sometimes are created by decisions that we make up here. And that's hard to say for me sometimes, but I think it's the reality given what I've noticed and observed when I did work out in the community. I noticed that both gangs and crime were strongest where sense of community was weakest, where community was weakest. And I agree with you, Dean, that caravan is all over the city, but it's concentrated in certain parts, unfortunately. It's more concentrated in certain parts. That's not to say it didn't happen where you live or happen in other places of the city, but it's concentrated. And I think Chief Health and this staff will tell us the same thing. There are areas that we need to have heavy concentration of police presence to address some of this stuff. And from the point of the overtime, Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, when we had mandated overtime, that wasn't a decision that was made unilaterally by the chief of police. That was a policy decision based on what we saw was an uptick in crime and our complaints to you from our constituents. And that was something that you kind of implemented with I think Chief Buckner was a chief at that time. We had mandated overtime because the police probably weren't happy about it, Dean, but that was a necessity based on his assessment and his work with the chief and his communication interaction with us. So am I correct on that?
Right.
So I think we need to take that into mind and take that into consideration as well. And Mayor, Chief, Assistant Chief, thank you guys, our security for tonight. Mayor, your personal bodyguard left. I want to thank him as well. But thank you guys for the work that you do and the work that you continue to do in leading our city to better, brighter places.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Assistant Chiefs. We'll now transition to the additions, the modifications, M1 through M6. M1 through M8. Any questions? We'll start with Director Adcock.
Yes, M2, what is the use of these cards? I know we used them back when we was doing the vaccine clinics, but what are the purchase used for now?
Sure. And these first two are recommendations from our consultant. I'm going to ask Assistant City Manager Emily Jordan Cox to come up, and she's been working with our grants department and with the city attorney's office.
Yes, ma'am. Director Adcock, on M2, that is the amount that we have spent on the Visa gift cards. The original contract allowed for first $700,000, and then the board decreased the COVID mitigation amount from $700,000 down to $300,000. And so this 237 accurately reflects the actual purchases of gift cards that we made.
So we're not purchasing new gift cards?
That's correct.
This is just taking care of what we've already purchased?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any additional questions on the modifications. As the mayor said, we're deferring the policy discussion till June 13th. We'll move to the consent agenda. Board members, are there any questions on items 1 through 13 on the consent agenda?
I've got one.
Director Adcock?
Yes, item number 7. Mr. Moore, I noticed that on all 8 and 9 and everything, we had addresses, but there's no address on item number 7. Could you tell me what the address is on that property?
See if Kevin's over there, but you know how to get to it. Here he comes. Kevin, on number 7, Adcock would like to know where the addresses are.
Yes, these are lots, vacant lots over in Euclid Place off of Bowers, Holt, and Elam Street. We'll be clearing those for, to set up for new construction for affordable housing. And since the actual property addresses, we hadn't pulled permits, we won't get addressed till the contractor actually pull a permit.
Okay, and again, what streets are they on?
It's on Holt and Bowers.
Oh,
Holt, Bowers, and Elam Street. It's one lot on Elam Street, and it's 6 lots between Holt and Bowers.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions on the consent agenda? Board members, are there any questions on item 14?
I have one on 14.
Director Adcock?
I noticed this is for food, but it's coming through the Central Arkansas Library System.
This is a partnership that we started, I think, 3 years ago with CALS called Be Mighty. So that's this program where they feed the students during the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Director Adcock, just one more note on that. We were one of about 7 cities that got a national grant from the National League of Cities. And out of those 7 cities, Little Rock is the one city in that cohort that has an even more robust program as a result of that grant than we did before it started. And with a childhood hunger rate in Pulaski County of 25%, I think it's been a really important program for our families in Little Rock and their children.
Okay, thank
I could
you.
make that editorial comment.
I'd like to add to that, if you don't mind, because I work with CALS on the 12th Street corridor revitalization. That area had or has one of the highest, if not highest, childhood obesity rates in the state. So we partnered with them when they built their new Children's Interactive Library to have a community garden there. And we also partnered with them when we got the grant, the first FDA grant, Bruce, I think, from to do a community garden on 12th and Payton at the Young Adult Opportunity Center. So they've been involved with trying to help us address some of these food desert issues in a real meaningful way, I think. So I just wanted to put some icing on your cake.
Director Compuros?
Can I ask one more question about number 7, please?
Yes.
Bruce, how do we build the road to these houses, these lots?
How do we build a road?
This doesn't have roads to it, isn't that correct?
I think this is just to clear the lots.
What?
These are just to clear the lots.
No, but once we've cleared the lot, how do we get to the lot?
Are we on 7?
Yes.
Okay, because when you transition, we can't hear you. So the lots already have streets that go to them. So Elam has a street that's going through from 40th Street all the way down to 48th Street, and it goes all the way down to Colonel Glenn. The same is for Bowers and Holt too as well.
So these have accessibility already, and we're going to clear the lots.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Those are all of the items that we have on the agenda. Any additional questions before we adjourn? And as a reminder, we do not meet next week. We'll meet on June the 6th. So seeing no additional questions.
If you don't mind, Vice Mayor, just want to reemphasize or mention again the UAMS 12th Street Community Cafe. We had a soft opening. It is open. You can go there for lunch and breakfast. It's in the heart of the community, and it's a really wonderful way for us to improve community-police relationships on that 12th Street corridor. So I'll say this proudly at the end of every meeting, Dean, announcing that that cafe is open, and we need people in the community to eat there and patronize that place and help us reorganize that whole area. So I say this out there every meeting, that cafe is open, and it's in Director Miller's ward right now, and he's been doing a wonderful job of working with our partners that Bruce had assembled. It's hard to believe, Bruce, that was
2014 when we opened it, yeah.
But when we started 12th Street revitalization plan, that was like August of 2008.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, it's hard to believe that we've been doing this that long, and Bruce did a wonderful job of making that place available for some retail partnerships, and it's open, and we need business over there. Business. Let's keep it in there and continue to help build up that area.
Vice Mayor, two things. Director Phillips wanted me to remind the public that the renters' rights discussion was deferred to June the 13th agenda. And also to Director Richardson's point, I don't know if it's on the calendar yet, but we have the date for the big grand opening at 12th Street is June 24th. It'll be a community event. The bank is going to bring their trailer out and cook, and the other two entities will be present also. So June 24th at 10.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. Director Miller?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want to let everyone know that I've already been to the community cafe. I've had breakfast there, and I've sent several people there already. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Adcock?
Yes, item number 16, are we not going to discuss it this evening?
We, again, to reiterate what the city manager just said, and we announced at the beginning of the meeting, we're postponing that discussion from tonight, and we told people ahead of time that we were going to postpone it. We'll discuss it on June 13th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing nothing else, we will see everybody on June the 6th. Thank you.